applications iterate all the time. And I think one of the biggest challenge educators have at law firms or any company really is that they have to learn things even quicker than they don't have to go and teach them because they're the first people to use it. They don't have to teach, and it's really quite difficult. So to be able to log into a tool where you can provide a really kind of succinct overview of an application. Here are the 5-10 basic things you really need to do, and I'll show you how to do them all. Click here, here, and here, and that's how you can start with this new app. It enables people to adopt new technology much quicker.
Hello, welcome to EdTech Leaders. Today we have Daryl Fitzpatrick, who is the Chief Revenue Officer of Intellek. Welcome.
Hi, Oliver. Thank you for having me. Really excited to take part.
Yeah, thanks so much. So tell us about Intellek and an overview of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Intellek have actually been around since 1989, but I guess our real journey kind of started around 2017 when we had a change in leadership, had a new CRO come in, and essentially we've kind of seen growth by about 2.5 times in that period. So from 2017 to 2025, we've grown by about 2.5-fold, which is really exciting, but it's kind of pushed us into that startup mentality really, as before we were kind of a bit more of a longer standing company. In terms of what I do at the company, so I'm the Chief Revenue Officer, and I'm responsible for all the revenue generating parts of the business. So things like sales, marketing, account management, and then some things to do with client success too. And over the period of the last 3 or 4 years, I've taken control of that element of the business, and we've seen significant growth over that period of time too. And over the last 12 months, we've actually seen an 18% increase in revenue. So a really strong year from the last financial year.
Okay, so for people not familiar, we don't know what kind of, you provide training, and training mostly in the legal industry,
hmm
right? To law firms and to schools. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So as a company, we specialize in learning technology, but also learning technology for the legal industry. So things like a learning management system, e-learning, we have a content authoring tool and a digital adoption platform. And that serves the whole legal spectrum. So things like law firms, in-house counsel teams, and then also legal tech vendors. We also work closely with a high number of law schools through a reseller, actually. Have a really good relationship with them. And I think around 17,000 students take those courses on an annual basis.
So tell us about the difference between when your corporate clients versus the students. Is there a big difference between the two and how you serve them?
Yeah, really good question. There isn't necessarily a really big difference in terms of what they're learning, which I think is the really exciting part. Ultimately, the technology that we provide and teach and train on is used all the way through that ecosystem. So whether they are kind of starting out or whether they are kind of at the end of their career, they're still learning the same things. And I guess that's the exciting part of being involved in technology, right? Like everything's evolving all the time. So everybody needs to kind of keep pace, regardless whether at the start of their journey or at the end. So how they learn and what they're learning, completely different, I suppose. But in terms of, I guess, response to learning, so being able to get that in front of them and their attitude to learning, I think that is something that is wildly different. We have lots of different demographics when you kind of work from, the top end of legal all the way down through to education. So I think the appetite for learning and the responsiveness to having those learning opportunities is probably the biggest difference between those demographics.
Give us some examples of some of the, I know, yeah, I'm sure it's a wide range of things that they're learning, but some of the things, they've been to law school, they
Mhm.
go to let's say they go into a firm. Is it the special knowledge of that firm or the industry, more specific knowledge? Is it more general knowledge about the industry or working with clients?
Yeah, I think what the legal system does really well, especially when you think of it from an education perspective, they teach you law and they teach you, case law and all these different elements of being a lawyer or an attorney, and they do that extremely well. There's a lot to learn, but ultimately, what they kind of not necessarily fail to teach, but the bit that kind of gets an oversight is the applications that they use in their day to day life. There's so many different systems that a lawyer or an attorney or even support staff will use in their life as a lawyer or an attorney. And that's the kind of gap that we're looking to fill. So what we provide that industry is we provide them with legal technology application skill set. So thinking things like Microsoft Office and how to use those effectively, but not necessarily just effectively as an application, but effectively within their workflows as well. We then look at specific legal tech applications. So there are some big ones out in the marketplace, things like iManage, NetDocuments, Litera. They're all very specific applications used by law firms. And again, they iterate so quickly, technology is advancing so quickly that we need to really kind of fill that gap and make sure that not only people that are leaving school and joining the workforce are able to kind of close that skill gap, but also anyone who's kind of working in the profession for 10, 15, 20 years as well, because there's vastly difference in the last sort of 10 years, as you can imagine.
Yeah. So what is your tech? Because you used to not even have video at some point, right?
Mhm.
Then you added video, and now you have platforms that people can use. Could you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the learning management system, and as you'd imagine, it's just a platform to host content. Now, I guess traditionally that might not always have been video, like you say. Perhaps maybe it started out with just a booking functionality, so that we could get people in a classroom, so they can kind of learn in that setting. That has transformed over the last 20, 30 years. And of course, now we've got a fully fledged learning management system. You can host videos on there. There's SCORM content on there, AICC, PDFs, and then some instructor led training facilitation as well. The content that we provide specifically to the marketplace, a lot of it is around application simulation. So I guess typically or stereotypically, lawyers and attorneys and anyone who works typically at a law firm, the idea is they're quite methodical or logical or rational learners. And a lot of it comes down to purpose. Why do they need to learn these skills? So the way that we find is the most effective way to teach them or train them is to provide a simulation of their environment. So the workflow that they actually need to be able to complete to do their job, and then we provide a simulation of that workflow. We do that in two ways. One of that is kind of a simulated version. So it's kind of a video of that workflow taking place, and they're able to kind of watch that and follow along on a second screen. The second use case is actually we use our content authoring tool. It's a live content authoring tool. So essentially, what that means is it overlays the real life application and it shows them in application exactly where to go and how to do things, and it guides them completely.
So they open the actual app on their computer, and then your technology is an overlay, so it's holding their hand, basically, and
Yeah.
guiding them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's often referred to as kind of just-in-time training or, live content workflow, whatever that might be. But ultimately, yeah, you open up an application, something like Microsoft Word, for example. You don't know how to do a table of contents, or you can't remember how to turn on track changes. All of a sudden, you can open up Intellek live content, and it will show you exactly where to do that on the screen, regardless of if you're on a large screen, a small screen, tablet, whatever it might be. You can kind of go on and get that guidance in app, which cuts out a lot of the necessity to go and find a resource or perhaps call a help desk and get some help from a human. So it really kind of accelerates that ability to close that skill gap while still maintaining productivity and working, in your application itself.
Is that web-based or an app downloaded on their computer?
Yeah, it's a bit of a
Mm.
both. So it's a web-based application in terms of administration. So it's a cloud-based authoring tool. They can log in, provides a lot of flexibility because, of course, when you use something like an Adobe Captivate or any of the kind of more traditional authoring tools, you have to share files and kind of send somebody a version to get their opinion and all those sorts of things. With ours, it's completely cloud based. So you can share that, you can share access, they can log in, you can kind of collaborate really quite easily. And that's for the administration. For it to work for the end user, it is an installed application. So it's installed on all devices at the law firm or potentially school. And it means that people can use that as they kind of skate from one application to another.
And can they use that one application to, get help with many different, applications, and is it one application for everything?
It is, yeah. So in terms of delivery, we then partner with our digital adoption platform. That is an installed application as well. And essentially, that digital adoption platform will follow you around. So wherever you go, whether you're in Word or Excel, or then maybe into some other different installed applications, it will follow with you, and it can suggest or prompt help as and when you may need it, or you can use as a search engine. You can use as a search engine to find first-hand support in any of those applications, and then it will launch and overlay that app and then start running you through the given workflow.
How quickly do people adopt to it? And how do you get people to use it?
That's a really good question. I think it depends on, first and foremost, the the demographics that we're looking at and the types of business that we're working with. For a lot of people, the first time they use it is a foreign concept. It's relatively new to the market. We don't have a large range of competitors in that space. There's not a lot of education or a lot of practice with the tool itself. But the response has been, I would say, overwhelmingly positive. I think when you kind of look at it as a concept, it's it's really quite interesting because so many times historically you might go through a SCORM course and somebody's trying to say, how well do you know this application? It's multiple choice. There's maybe some things you have to click. You could get lucky and click your way to a decent score. You really could. But when somebody's assessing you live in an environment and they're saying, show me how to do this, show me how to do that, how can I get here? And you physically have to go into the application and show them, there is no margin for error. You can't get lucky. You either know the workflow or you don't. And I think because the tool shows that kind of level of certainty around proficiency and competency, the response has been overwhelmingly positive because it's really giving you a key insight into how good or proficient somebody is within a workflow. And I think that gives you such more or better insight into where you then need to train moving forward, right? You've got this real kind of overview of what someone's capable of, and then that kind of makes it really clear where the skill gaps are. In terms of getting it in front of people, it's installed so people can use it on their own device. Again, it's relatively easy to use. Once you've got it open and launched, there are balloon tips involved, and it will simply kind of navigate you around an application. So I think as a concept, sometimes it's kind of hard to visualize, but once you have it in front of you and it's literally showing you around something in an app, it's really quite easy to follow.
Hmm. I imagine that it not only can teach you something you don't know how to do at all, but um, in some ways, this is just as important, something that you do all the time, but very inefficiently. So I'm thinking of Excel, for example. People use it all the time, and there might be a shortcut that will save them many steps. So is it useful in that way?
Yeah, we use it for all sorts. There's two or three kind of really popular use cases, I would say. One of the main ones, in my opinion, is using it for new applications. So, of course, applications iterate all the time. And I think one of the biggest challenge educators have at law firms or any company really is that they have to learn things even quicker than they don't have to go and teach them because they're the first people to use it. They don't have to teach, and it's really quite difficult. So, to be able to log into a tool where you can provide a really kind of succinct overview of an application. Here are the 5, 10 basic things you really need to do, and I'll show you how to do them all. Click here, here, and here, and that's how you can start with this new app. It enables people to adopt new technology much quicker, in my opinion. The second one is, like you say, refamiliarizing yourself with workflows that maybe you did all the time previously, and now you've maybe kind of forgotten, you're out of practice. But there is a level of comprehension there. You kind of understand where you need to go, but it just helps you refamiliarize maybe the steps involved. And then the third is, like I said earlier, assessing how well you really know something. I think we all like to think in our day-to-day jobs we are experts at doing this and experts at doing that. But like you say, it might not necessarily be the efficient way. So, maybe there is a case of I could confidently say I know how to save a document within Word. Am I doing it the quickest way? Am I using a keyboard shortcut? Am I clicking save as? Have I got, auto save turned on? And again, it's really quite interesting because I think it teaches you, shortcomings that maybe you don't necessarily know that you had.
Yeah. I mean, people are notoriously bad at self-assessment.
Mhm.
So let's talk about marketing then for a little bit. How has it changed? What have you been doing, and what has worked well for you?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because for the longest period of time, we didn't actually have a marketing department. It's something that we only really introduced in 2021, maybe 2022. We've always had a business development element, someone kind of going out there and looking for leads. And of course, especially in the legal sector, there's a really strong element of word of mouth. So it's a really kind of sustainable way to create business anyway. But over the last few years, we've kind of identified opportunity and, how can we really tell a story? And I think that's one thing that we failed to do previously is effectively tell a story of, like I said earlier, problems that we're trying to solve and challenges that we're looking to squash within the marketplace. I think the best way to do that is through marketing. And some of the things that we've done completely different over the last 3 or 4 years has kind of really introduced that storytelling aspect. So we've built out things like case studies, but not case studies that are kind of anecdotal, case studies that really have some hard evidence in there and kind of showing some really powerful use cases. we've created a blog, a regular blog stream. We do two a month at the moment. And again, just being able to provide that education and insight into what we're doing, but mainly why we're doing it and how we're doing it, again, has really increased kind of traffic to the website. And then, of course, things like conversions too. And most recently, one of the biggest things that we do from a marketing perspective is we started attending industry specific events. So, not necessarily going there with the intention of kind of pitching what we do, but going there to really understand the challenges of the industry as a whole, going to the sessions, understanding, the talking points, the challenges, the solutions, and then kind of try and matching that to what we do and what we're able to provide. So I think that kind of three pronged attack of ultimately being aware of what's going on, providing some education opportunity through things like blog posts, and then meeting our audience where they are in terms of conferences and events has been really powerful and kind of really pushed us forward in terms of being able to grow the business.
And what outreach do you do? Do you do social media? Do you email marketing?
Yeah, we do a combination. I've always been a firm believer that ultimately your brand is only as strong as people are aware of it. So, you need to meet fires wherever they could potentially be. So if you are really good at social media, but you're not doing email marketing, you're potentially missing out people who will only buy or read through email. So we try and do as much as possible, even though we're a relatively small team. But yeah, ultimately outreach comes in the form of, like I said earlier, attending the conferences. That probably generates the most amount of traction for us. But then we do have email campaigns that go out regularly. They are educational based. So kind of leading with a conversation, some of these problems and challenges that we hear about at conferences, and then, offering solutions to those moving forward. We do have a lot of social media activity as well. The focus on social media for us is more about kind of creating personal brands as opposed to brand on the business. We have some really, really kind of interesting thought leaders within our business. We have an instructional design team because we make content, but then we also sell to instructional designers because we have a content authoring tool. So to be able to provide that kind of expertise in house and be able to talk about it effectively and also understand the challenges that they're having because we have the same challenges as, content creators, I think is really powerful. So again, we're able to kind of tell those stories effectively on social media as well. And then we run some webinars occasionally too, to kind of discuss those different talking points, and again get some of our thought leaders in front of people.
What are your goals for the next 6 months, year? What's next for Intellek?
Yeah, we want to. We've actually recently discovered a really interesting business model for us. So traditionally, we've always been centered around kind of providing a corporate LMS to a corporate organization, or providing educational tech to an educational organization. But that's very much students or employees. Recently, what we've discovered is a lot of our clients actually provide content to their clients. So we've started working with law firms to provide a solution so they can also provide learning opportunities to their clients moving forward. So it's almost like a white label or a white glove service where they use our software to provide those opportunities to their clients moving forward. And it's been really informational because it's one of those where actually you start to see the same challenges across different sectors and industries. Everybody is trying to find ways to adopt new technology. There's new technology coming out in all industries all the time, and it's a really big challenge. And I think even if you look at something like AI over the last 5 years or 3 years, even it's grown so much and become so ingrained in almost everything we do that transcends any marketplace that it sits in. It's all marketplaces. So kind of seeing that firsthand through our clients doing that has been a really interesting business model for us. It's opened up a brand new revenue stream, which is really exciting. It's kind of helped us shift from just kind of ARR to MRR, which again is really exciting. Got to help things like cash flow and long term and short term business health, which is great. But in terms of what we want to do moving forward, I think what we really want to cement is our position as one of, or if not the most trusted educational or learning technology vendor within the legal space. I think that's something that's really important to us. We want to ensure that, we are synonymous with that space. And I think wider than that, we want to kind of move, I guess, vertically across some of those more corporate organizations, moving into things like finance, pharmaceutical, and, those industries that have a lot of shared problems with someone like legal.
Let's talk about AI for a second. What AI functionality do you have? And with this new business model, what AI functionality do you provide to those clients to help their clients?
Yeah, really good question. So AI is something that we've adopted, which is fantastic. We have managed to involve it or include it in our products, which I think at the moment is almost do or die for a lot of technology vendors. We have it in two of our products as it stands. We have it in the digital adoption platform, and we have it inside the content authoring tool. They are mainly based around efficiency. So the features that we've used for AI around kind of efficiency and saving time and just making both content authoring, but then also digital adoption just more scalable. So the way that it works in a digital adoption platform is the AI search essentially will create a resource that maybe doesn't exist already. So currently, the digital adoption platform might connect to your LMS, it might connect to your SharePoint. And when a user searches that for a piece of content, it looks at all of your existing ecosystem in different content stores, and it will suggest the one that is most accurate. But what you can do is if you do that search and then you don't find a resource, you still need help. So then you can use the AI functionality to do that search instead, and that will provide you with instructions. So it's a really easy way that you can kind of find something that maybe doesn't currently exist in order to get the support you need wherever you are. In the content authoring tool, the efficiency is focused more on the admin. So what it will do is, again, like I said earlier, you have this situation at the moment where educators are expected to learn things 3 or 4 times as quickly as the general staff because they have first sight or first look at these applications they then have to teach on. So again, to help with their learning curve, if they run an AI search within the content authoring tool, they can say, what are the 10 main features of this new application? That will pop open a list of instructions. They can quickly create those into 10 instructions, and then they can simply go and click on those different buttons within that app. And again, it means that their learning curve has been extremely accelerated within that new app, but also they're able to promote and create content extremely quickly. So there are two features that we use in AI. In terms of how we're going to use it to support our clients moving forward, we've got an LMS v4 coming out soon. It's going to be our newest version of the LMS. There are going to be some AI features in there. I think it's mainly going to be around kind of suggested learning and kind of creating those different pieces of content and making them more easily accessible. However, they are kind of still being scoped at the moment. So there's room for interpretation there and still lots of exciting things to come. But it's on the roadmap and I'm looking forward to it.
It's great. Just want to ask you about what are some of the major challenges in the legal industry that you see might be coming in the next few years that you need to face?
Yeah, there are so many challenges I think in all industries, and I think the main one for legal industry is probably transcends legal industry. It's probably prevalent for everyone, but I do think the biggest challenge that we have as educators is things are evolving so quickly that it's really quite hard to keep up as an educator. And then you're expected as an educator to have your staff or your colleagues or your peers keep up just as quickly. Now, when you think of that as a logical workflow, you have 10, 15 tech companies out there that are creating applications quicker than, you know, staff can learn them, essentially. And you've got that multiplied across the whole industry. So it's not just 10 vendors, maybe it's 15 vendors or 20 vendors. You only ever have one, two, maybe a maximum of five trainers, even at a large law firm. So, you know, that expectation that that trainer or those small team of trainers have to go and learn a vast number of applications and then comprehend them well enough to turn that into meaningful content to then educate 100, 300, 1,000 different attorneys or support staff, I think is something that realistically isn't sustainable. So there needs to be a way that we can accelerate both the education for the educator, but also the way in which they can create content effectively. And not just content that, kind of shows the basics, but things that are really insightful and shows a real kind of knack to a workflow that gives people the ability to be productive as quickly as possible. I don't think that challenge is necessarily just for legal, but having seen legal from a first-hand perspective, we do a conference every year called ILTACON. it kind of rotates venues every 3 or 4 years. I went to the first one in 2022, and it's back at the same venue this year. I looked at just out of curiosity, I looked at the floor plan from 2022 versus this year, and I think we're talking about 50 vendors versus about 150 vendors. And you think there's, a couple of trainers at each law firm and now have to go and learn not only the 50 that were there 3 years ago, but now 150. And it's just not comprehensible. There's a serious risk of kind of devaluing what all of those applications bring to the marketplace by simply not having enough people to train and educate on them.
Mm. And some of these law firms are international. They
Mhm.
have offices in multiple countries, multiple languages, although I assume mostly using English. But how do you address that, dealing with different languages? Obviously, they have to use those languages in their own country, even if they're speaking English to each other.
Mhm.
How do you address that?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, we ourselves have clients all the way across the globe. We've got clients in the US, Canada, UK, Central Europe, South Africa, Hong Kong. And even just across those few sort of regions, there's multiple different languages, and it is a challenge. I guess typically speaking, the second language in most of those places does tend to be English. So, the large kind of global offices, there is, I guess, an expectation that typically speaking, there's going to be some expectation to understand some English at I guess, a basic level. And I guess that helps with some training capability. However, I think it's a very ignorant view to be, well, everyone else will speak English, so we can train in English. And I think that's where there's a lot of really good AI tools that will help with that, right? So these days, you can find a few tools and you can put in, English speaking content or audio, and it will translate for you. So I think there's definitely a solution there. But yeah, you're right. I think it's a real challenge because the teams are typically speaking understaffed anyway, and that's for their local region or their locality. And when you then scale that globally and they're expected to either learn languages themselves or to provide this content in different languages, even if you use AI, who fact checks that? How can you confidently say, well, this is good quality, and then roll that out? So I think there is a challenge there for sure. And I think AI can help, but I don't think it will solve it on its own.
Hmm. It's great. How do people find out about you? Intellek.io, Intellek.io. And do you have any workshops coming up or webinars?
Yeah, we're doing actually a really exciting series over the next few months. So we'll be doing a full US roadshow over the next 3 months. We're going to a lot of major cities across the East Coast through to the West, and we'll be hosting workshops in law firms with some of our clients, where we'll be speaking about the challenges that they face, but also some of the challenges they overcome using our products. There's going to be a whole series available on social media. It's being hosted on Eventbrite as well. So lots of places to kind of find out about that information and sign up to one of those. We just did a webinar last week, yesterday, not even a week ago. Just the days kind of get long, don't they? Did a webinar yesterday, and I'm sure we'll do some more. But there's a whole events page on our website, so you can keep up to date with all the different things that we're doing, whether that is in person or online.
Thank you so much for joining us. This was fun.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.